Might want to put this away.
So the thing is, apparently, that if you talk smack about a team for 2 weeks straight, they might be kind of motivated to bring it. So Silver Surfers, you guys the best. You're the best team in the league. Good Lord, 11-4 in 2 games. Not the podcast we were hoping, but new location for the day. MLB, Maison Blanche, MBL, what is it?
Les Maisons Blanches. It's the White Houses, basically. So we're here at my compound in Lusail.
We missed tarps off by about 20 minutes. We got the thing out, but you're about 20 minutes away. If we were 20 minutes early, we would have had the tarps off. But let's see, boys. Let's get her going. The Qeason, episode number 4. Let's get her going. All right, Greg. What are we talking about today?
Well, I guess we'll do a recap of the week's games. What we had going on.
In terms of the standings, we'll put the statistics up. In terms of standings, it's still the Kings on top. We're in second. We're the only 2 teams that have winning records. Everyone else is 2-4. With I think the Heat the Dune Bashers, followed by the Surfers, and then what do we have in last place? We have the is it the Ice Cats? Somewhere in there.
Yeah. So I mean, we can start off basically by recapping the week's games. Starting with last Sunday, we had Surfers versus Heat in the early game, which was the first time we actually would butt heads with Yarko's Silver Surfers. We hadn't played them before, so it was the first matchup of that. And it was pretty much a low-scoring affair. We lost 4-2. Sean McCallum was player of the game in my view.
Yeah, he can skate.
I think he had a couple of goals for sure. Brian Van Mierlo and who was the other goalie? Pasi is a Finnish goalie. He's new. He's not the same caliber as Brian. He's not bad. He's decent, but Brian stole the show. Brian was stellar for them, particularly when we faced him. The goaltenders, if you don't know, the goaltenders in our league, in the Q, we don't have goaltenders assigned to teams because it's just the way they gravitate, and they have work commitments. So you can't really rely on one goaltender to play for one team for the whole season because of attendance problems. So we have a goaltender pool, and we have a goaltender coordinator, Alex, Swedish Alex is our goaltender. Thanks, Alex, for stepping up again this year. So the guys sign up. They check with Alex. They tell Alex their schedules and availability, and they can sign up for games just as we assign refs for games, that type of thing. So
and then to make it fair, we do half on one team, half on the other. So we switch at halftime. We play like 30 minutes, and then we switch. So if you get a hot goalie, then he's your goalie for the next ref.
So they split the time in the games half and half. So that way, if one goalie is particularly strong, another goalie is maybe a weaker goalie, each team reaps the rewards of what the goalie's situation for that day. So that's how we do it.
Overall, though, you'd have to say that the goalie level this year with a couple of these new guys in, is pretty high. Like, I'm not scoring like they're not just dinky rounds and stuff. It's going to take some effort for guys like me to score. We need some grunt work and they're not coming easy.
Yeah, so in this particular game last Sunday, which was the first game of the week, we much awaited a match with them. We weren't bad. We had we had our chances. Sean kind of dictated the game, even though Jesse Kosella for us was ever present, omnipresent, as we'll say. He had a good game, but the goaltenders, particularly Brian, was very, very good up to the task of stopping Jesse on several chances. And actually, when I mentioned Sean is normally a forward, but he played D for Yarko in this one. And he was able to carry the game, kind of carry the play and dominate the play from the back end. So that was basically the story of the early game on Sunday.
I ref the second game. That was the Bashers against the Kings?
Bashers, yeah. Second game was, second game of Sunday, this past Sunday, was Cats versus Bashers.
Right.
So the Ice Cats versus the Dune Bashers. So that's Jimmy Mack's squad against Brent McNair's squad, which, so... and we had different goalies for that game. So we had Régine Vigneault, who's been here for a long time, goaltending for us. And we had Uncle Farid Barson. And so both goalies, they had a decent game. It was a 6-4 win for the Ice Cats. And Keith Loader particularly had a good game for the Bashers. He had 1 goal, 1 assist. So shout out to Keith Loadmaster. Gets player of the game for the Bashers. But Jeremy Smith and Thaddeus Ressler and Johnny Meyer for the Cats proved to be too much for the Doom Bashers. They led the game late, and they closed it out 6-4. So that was the game, doubleheader game on Sunday. Then it led into a Tuesday night game when we played the Cats in a rematch from last week. We had beat them. What was the score that we 14-5?
Yeah,
we were drubbing on them, right?
Yeah.
So they were looking for retribution, which did not happen. It was a 3-2 win for us. And our main man Jesse had a game-winning shorthanded goal midway through the third to put us up 3-0. So we were up 3-0 going halfway through the third. They got two late goals. Jeremy Smith was able to tally twice for them late in the third period. And a note to this game, Knife, who plays with the Oryx, Knife Al-Rumali. I think that's how you pronounce your surname, Knife Al-Rumali. He graciously subbed for us. The Oryx is not playing in the league yet. They're still sorting out their stuff. But we were able to acquire Knife as a sub on the back end, and he got a goal for us.
He scored the first goal, right? Was it against
shot.
Tyson?
Yeah, against Tyson.
Yeah, that kind of it just broke the ice. We were a bit struggling there, and Knife on end-to-ender.
Even though they outshot us by a wide margin in that game, we were able to pull it out. Thomas and Brandon Bone were the goalies. So
that was a beast.
Basically, actually, the story of that game was Brandon didn't allow a goal. So he was particularly sharp. Thomas was good as well, but all 5 goals came against Thomas. He was feeling a little bit bad about that after the game. He was like, he got the better. But he had a lot of shots. Brandon stood on his head, basically. Good job by Brandon. So he actually is kind of vying now for, I think, arguably one of the best goaltenders.
Well, Colton said it when he was talking about him because they work at the same place. He was saying that Brandon, he's so positionally strong. Brandon makes everything look like there are breakaways and he hardly moves. He's because he's positionally just there's nowhere to put it past him. He doesn't seem to move. Even when the puck goes side to side, he just shifts over, and instead of making a diving spectacular save, he's just there to put it in the middle of his chest, right?
He's always squared to the puck, and his lateral mobility is very good. So, and he's a big guy. I'd say Brandon must go around 6'2", maybe. Tyson's 6'2". So they're both fairly big goalies, so cover a lot of the net. And Butterfly, both are technically sound Butterfly goalies. And they cover a lot of lower. So to beat them, I think you got to get it up high. You got to go top shelf when you're in tight, and hopefully you can get enough on it to beat them. So
I may never score against you. I may never. If it is, it's going to be some garbage, but I'll take it. Today's games.
So that brings us to Friday's slate of games. We had basically this weekend. We're missing a lot of players. There's a contingent of guys that are representing Doha in a little, we call it a mini tournament in Muscat, Oman. So there's several players from the league who are attending that in Muscat this weekend. So subs were a premium. Like there was not many substitute players available for people to pick up for today's 2 games. So that is paramount when you're talking about the Q. As we mentioned before, subs are going to be an ongoing thing. So whoever is able to pick up subs, consequently, are going to do well and adapt. So, but today's game, we had the early game, the Oil Kings played the Doom Bashers, and the Kings won 6-2. They were off to a 6-0 lead. Actually, it was only 2 late goals by by the Bashers that made it 6-2, I believe. But the game was well in hand. They cruised to a 6-2 win.
I think really the highlight of that game has to be Lance McIsaac and his
Lance McIsaac?
Yeah, Jimmy.
What
Jimmy
do you call
McInnes,
it?
Lance McInnes.
Armstrong?
Yeah, Lance Armstrong, Jimmy McInnes.
Okay, yeah.
Jim,
yeah.
We're going to put it on a picture. We'll get it up there, and hopefully right now you're looking at a picture of what's actually happening.
I think if you tuned into maybe last week's podcast or the one before, we basically touched on the need for captains and their teams to volunteer refs to ref games, because we're a little bit low on refereeing right now. So Jimmy Mack, who's the captain of the Ice Cats, stepped up today to ref both games because his team was idle. So he was able to step up graciously, put on the stripes, and he put on what we'd call
a schmedium.
Yeah, schmedium. Like
some child went without their hockey jersey today, or their ref's jersey.
Jimmy, I would say Jimmy goes at about 280. 6'4", maybe 280. Definitely a triple X. Jimmy is maybe, depending on the size, definitely double X.
That thing was tight.
And this thing was Louis Garneau.
Yeah, that's it. Streamlined, built for speed. It was pretty.
Varney special. Like it was maybe who's it? Lance Armstrong. Maybe like who are all these cyclists that weigh about $140?
As Dolly Parton once said, it's like fitting 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack. That was Jimmy today.
He was tight. It was extremely tight. Like,
I'm surprised you get the whistle up to
squeeze into that. And I think my buddy Beggs here might have a photo op of that actual.
We did get a picture.
Yeah, so maybe you'll be able to view that probably when we do the edit. So.
And then our game was probably better to forget. We lost.
So I'm looking at, and I'd also like to mention actually. I don't think both teams were missing very consequential players in this one, and the Kings were able to pick up forward Ryan Hartzog. Ryan, shout out to Ryan. Ryan has played in our league, but hasn't been drafted in the league for a number of years. He's part of other commitments, so he's kind of on a ready alert 5. He's one of those subs. He's not assigned to a league team, but he's a very good player. So he was able to sub for one of the guys on the Kings. So that gave them, I think, nine players for their squad today. I also think the Bashers went with 9 because they were missing Charles Fullerton and they were missing Ryan Gordon, and of course our buddy Loader, who I aforementioned, Keith Loader, is off to get exfoliation on his feet on the beaches of Pattaya, I think, as we speak. Yeah. So he's in Thailand. So they were missing Keith. They were able to pick up, they couldn't pick up anyone, so they were with their 9. A lot of pressure on John Finnegan on the back end to carry that team today, and I think the Kings. A lot
of opportunities for us B-League All-Stars to make a mark, which most of us didn't.
So the Kings came out on top, and I think Captain Hayes had 2 goals, so he might have been the difference as far as getting on the board offensively for them early, and they cruised to a 6-2 lead or win. And in the second game of today's doubleheader, it was our team, the Heat, versus a rematch versus the Surfers. So both teams, again, were playing without, well, actually, they were only missing Simon, I think, as a top-end guy, Simon Graham. So they had Liam, Liam is the same as our aforementioned Knife. Both of them play on the Works national team, but are not drafted to a team. So Liam White was able. He's only 17 or 18, I think Liam is he? Yeah. 17? Anyway, Liam's a good defender. I wouldn't put him in the class of Simon Graham, but he was able to fill in admirably for Simon his absence. And we were missing our 2 big guns. As I mentioned, there's a group of guys representing Qatar in Oman at the tournament. Jesse is one of them. And then we talk about Peter. Gayor Peter is still on the mend. He's got a lower back, or we'll call it lower body injury, LBI. He's on the shelf now indefinitely. We're not sure when we'll get Peter back, but there are 2 big guns. So we were missing them, and we were able to pick up Andrew Reed from the Idle Cats. He filled in for us. Thanks a lot, Andrew. And it was a close game. The score's not indicative. We lost 7-1, but I thought it was a closer game, more like a 5-3 type game if I was to describe how the game went. But in that game particularly, Sean, again, I mentioned Sean McCallum for the Surfers. He basically did a great job. He was playing, I think he played center most of the game, but he had a great defensive game when we would try to attack. There was times when Will would attack, I would attack, and try to gain his own, and they would stack the line. Sean would do a good job reading the play, come over and defend us, and we couldn't really get sustained attack or pressure in the Surfers' end. So and he played a lot of minutes, so they were able to win 7-1. So that's
I want to mea culpa on we were at 3-0, and I was along the boards, and I'd won the puck, which doesn't always happen. I won the puck, and then I went to release it out to, I think Will was breaking away, and I went to the backhand, and I tried to put it across ice because I was trying to flip it over the stick, and it was maybe the worst pass defensive. It went right on. Was it on Sean's stick? Might have been. I think it might have been. Yeah, and then it was right up the middle.
I think it was
fluffy as a marshmallow.
It was fairly consistent with the Cardinals' sin of weak up the middle.
And we were 3-0. We were still positive it was going to happen, and then it was 4-0.
I was within 5-6 feet of my winger here when he did it, and I wasn't demonstrative when I said it, but I think if there was a mic, you could have heard me saying something like, Jesus Christ.
Jeez, I think
up the middle, Bex. Up the middle.
To make it worse, after I tried to get back to, because he'd come out to it, and I tried to come out and sort of dive desperately at the puck. Did not get it. Scored. And then I flipped over onto my back on the ice and dropped in a mall during prayer time, I'm pretty sure, a massive
F-bomb?
Inappropriate
word.
Pretty loud to the ceiling, and as soon as I did it, I went, "Oh, I'm in trouble here." I hope so. That didn't happen. Sorry, Agnew, if you're in Oman or whatever, that didn't happen. Wow, that was a game. That was a game changer. That was a Bill Buckner through the legs. We're not getting back from this. I'm sorry, boys.
And the Mets win it.
So
that's how our second game ended. 7-1 loss to the Surfers. Now they've beaten us in back-to-back games. We look forward to some retribution.
So this is
when
me.
We play you again.
This is me eating the crow there. Surfers. I might have dropped a couple of.
He had some wallpaper material. He said. Beggs contends that he had some newspaper clipping material for you guys to hang on your wall. You had added incentive to make us eat the crow.
I realize why guys wait until they're retired before they start doing this stuff, because I'm out there, and I was trying to be like, and they were just looking at me like, go yourselves, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a long game. I think they were ready. So
on that note, we're going to take a little break. And
wait. Before we do, the scoring hasn't changed much. Will's moving up. We'll post that here now.
You want to
see
talk
all
a
the
little bit
leaders.
about that?
We'll just, I don't think it's changed enough, but we'll have it up here on the screen. You guys can see who's doing it. It's still Jesse in front. John's in second. But we're going to talk about the Trillionaires. Okay. We're down to 6, I think. This will come up here as well. Dave Copeland, you're now in the leader box. I think you're on 4. The Ostrowskis are on a 3 apiece.
They're getting closer to the ever resilient, not resilient, what's the word I'm looking for? 69. Like if they can get to a 6 and a 9, but they're at 3 and a 3, so eventually maybe we'll get them to a 6 and a 9.
If they get to 10, it's going to be. But we'll get there. The Trillionaire is if you got your number and then 000, no points, no nothing afterwards, you're a Trillionaire. And Copeland, you got the 4. A couple of guys got off. A bunch of people got off this week. We had 13.
So you say Dave Copeland is still there?
Yep.
Who else do we have?
Ostrowski's is there.
Yeah.
Ryan Brenzy, Ryan's still on it.
And Ryan played today. Ryan doesn't play a lot of games, but you did play today. I would suggest next game, Ryan, if it's not looking too fortuitous for a goal or an assist, and you play the Heat, crack Beggs.
Yeah,
It's his category. Get
okay,
a penalty.
So for the Ostrowskis, Dave Copeland, Brezzy, if you guys are feeling desperate, whatever,
crack
the
him.
Code word is Red Rocket, and that's going to drop gloves. We'll have offsetting minors. I'm happy to do that. If you don't want to give up penalty for your teammates, if they're offsetting majors, that's what needs to happen. All 4 of you, Red Rocket. That's what needs to happen.
Not Red Robin.
Not Red Robin. Red Rocket.
Red Rocket.
Like the dogs.
So
All right.
On that note, do we want to take a little break?
We'll take a break.
Vince, you came into Doha maybe a year or two after I did. The pride of Petty Harbour, Newfoundland, Canada. That's Vince's hometown. Just expand on, Vince, what brought you to Doha originally, and can you confirm that it was around 2004 or 5 that you originally came? What brought you to Doha, and a little bit of background on your hockey acumen and growing up in Petty Harbour, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, I came in 2005, or 2004 I came actually. I didn't play that first year. I didn't think there was hockey in the desert. Surprise, I went to the mall one day and people were shooting around this blue ball that you talk about.
Yep.
So I didn't have any gear, so I said next year, or when I go home in the summer, I'll bring back my gear. And I think I brought back the gear, and then I ran into Greg at the Doha clinic. I probably was getting something checked out, and
both of us were getting checked out. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
I was at the psychiatry department, I think.
yeah.
But anyways, Greg mentioned that he should come out and play, and I did. And I've been playing pretty much, well, not pretty much, ever since. I had 1 year that I had back problems, but other than that, it's been consistent since 2005, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and it's been a lifesaver for me in the desert, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really that much of a people person, but at least hockey gets me out and talking to great guys like these guys, and having some social interaction. And plus, I love to play. Although I'm getting so bad, as Beggs was talking about, the goalies are getting better. Well, when I play now, it seems like there's 3 goalies in net.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher to get our goals now.
Yeah.
So you originally you grew up in Petty Harbour. Obviously,
Yeah.
you probably were born in St. John's. Obviously, there was no hospital in Petty Harbour. Petty Harbour, for you guys that don't know, Petty Harbour is a small rural community about 15 minutes outside of the capital city of St. John's, Newfoundland, and that's where Vince grew up.
Yeah.
So just give us a little bit of a background on your hockey career before you came to Doha.
Well, I played a lot of hockey actually before I came to Doha. Growing up, I played minor hockey with the Goulds Minor Hockey Association, started by John Dinn.
I was going to say John Dinn.
Yeah,
John Dinn.
Started it.
John Dinn. I used to stay at John Dinn's house for a little while in the early 80s. I think we stayed at John's for a little while and we babysat there and went to St. Kevin's School in the Goulds. So I know John Dinn well. Yeah. And John has been an integral part of Goulds minor hockey as long as I can remember.
Yeah, probably as long as it's been happening. I mean,
right?
Probably not lately, but he started it all. And then the first year that it started, I played, and I started playing midget hockey. I was bantam age, but I played midget hockey because there was 3 of us in Petty Harbour who were playing, but we only had 1 car. So all of us had to be in.
So you have to
drive together.
You have to take us.
Yeah.
You have
right.
to. So as a threesome, you have to take us. Come on.
So as to age yourself, Vince, not to age yourself, but when you were growing up as a young hockey player, who were your heroes? What was your team? How did you get the games on?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've always been a Leafs fan, Beggs. And I was born in 1962. They won in '67. Last time.
You don't remember
I don't
that.
remember it, and they haven't won since. Hopefully they'll win before I die. They won't win before I retire, most likely, unless they win this year.
I think it's now, or it'll be a long time. I think if they have the team on paper to do it, they've had the team on paper for the last 4 or 5 years to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the mix. I said this last year. I mean, I think, and I'm not a Leafs fan, but I find I take humor in when things go wrong for the Leafs, but I also think it would be good for hockey if the Leafs won the cup. I think it would be at least get to the cup. I mean, it would be heartbreak then if they lost for Leafs, but I mean, I don't think it would be a bad season if they got to the finals and subsequently lost. But if they happen to win, but then again, if they happen to win, you will not hear the end of it from Leafs fans. So
if it's a Vancouver, Toronto,
oh yeah, wouldn't that be Vancouver?
So were you like a Daryl Sittler, Lanny McDonald era, or were you slightly before that?
Yeah, I think probably Daryl Sittler era Daryl was the big guy when I was.
That's what I remember.
Playing. Daryl's probably like close to my age, right?
That's when you talk about Sittler, I don't think his record of 10 points in a game will ever be broken.
Right.
If Gretzky didn't do it. Lemieux didn't do it. who else is going to do it? Like, I don't think in today's game, now there's an
think-
uptick in scoring this year,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's the
No.
physicality of the game. The guys are such conditioned athletes now that I don't think
the
you're going.
goalies are good.
And the goalies are so good. I don't think you're going to see a 10-point game.
I think Dion Dirtle scored 11 one time in the Q.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Dion.
I
Yeah,
don't know
for
what-
those.
Jesse's got it.
I don't know what the
And
record is. But
I wonder if there was an over/under on when we did this podcast. How many podcasts could we go before the aforementioned Dion Dirtle's name is mentioned?
Yeah.
Because Dion,
Took an
for,
old guy like
for
me.
you guys that don't know, for years, Dion Dirtle
the face
was
of it.
the face. He was our best player for as long as he was here.
yeah, for sure.
And Dion was here from probably 2004, if I'm not mistaken, till 2010, I think. So for those 6 years, he was the nuts and bolts of the Q, and he dominated. He was one of the best players we've ever had here. Now, Beggs and I were referring to this in the last podcast with Jimmy Mack. In today's game in the Q, we have about 8 guys that are the caliber of Dion. Would you concur?
At least. But when Dion played, Carter was kind of there.
Yeah.
Remember Rob Carter?
Yeah, Rob. Yep.
Rob was kind of there, and Loader was good too. Loader's maybe slowed down slightly since then, or
But I think the 8 that we have
yeah.
now
we're
would
better.
would
Way-
all
way
play in
stronger.
the
Yeah.
same competitive
Yeah.
league as Dion. Like
Yeah.
they're on par with Dion,
Sure they are,
right?
yeah.
We never had that
No.
before. Like
No.
there was only a couple of guys
Yeah, then a big
that
drop.
were in the caliber of a Dion.
Yeah.
But now we have about 8 guys that are the same caliber of Dion. And we've seen, like I said in the past podcast,
Yeah.
we've seen people come and go. And
So you were talking a little bit before about like the physicality of the new game and stuff. This just randomly came up on my thing. I was looking at Craig McTavish in 95-96 played without a helmet. He was the last guy to play without a helmet. And he's playing for the Blues and he had the jersey on and stuff. It seems so insane to think about,
Yeah.
like, because he had modern stuff on. And you're like, that just seems nuts to be out there. Like, we play in our league. I don't want to take one of our good slap shots to the head. I don't want to fall backwards, let alone some guy
you'd
running
be like
into
you'd
you.
be like my shirt if that happened.
Right? Like it's just
Spitting chiplets.
it just seems I'd be spitting brain bits. That's what I'm more worried about.
JFK.
Like if you had so he was playing in the time of like Al McInnes. Al McInnes had a big booming shot, right? Like 95, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like if that hit you in the side of the head and you were going
It's
across
over.
the middle of the ice,
It's over.
like it just seems so insane. The guys were like, "Wow, I'm still like an old school tough guy, so I want my hair to look good, so I'm not going to wear a helmet in a hockey
Well,
game."
the guys that come to mind when you talk about the vanity of the league that want to look good and the helmet is just not in their repertoire. I'm thinking of a guy like Ron Duguay. You remember
Guy
Ron?
Lafleur.
Guy Lafleur, Ron Duguay.
But-
Duguay was married to Carol Alt, the supermodel, right?
Yeah.
And he played. I think Ron Duguay spent most of his career in New York on
Yeah.
Broadway. So he was, celebrity. He was going to Studio 54 and all these stories. So other than Ron, like I'm going to say, McTavish was the last guy that I know, and he was grandfathered in. They had the NHL had said no more. That you cannot. Everyone has to wear a helmet, except for a few. And Craig McTavish, is the one that comes to mind. I think he was the last standing guy.
But before,
with
when
no
they had
lid.
like the wooden sticks, and like it was kind of hard to lift. Like it wasn't. But once they got like the combine whatever sticks,
the composite that we
composite sticks that we have now, and guys are leaning into them stuff like that's a
Well, if Al
that's a weapon.
McInnes was using a composite stick, he would have to use. He would break one every shift.
Yeah. There's a
Right?
different way of shooting now, though, Greg. Like you shoot differently. They lean on that stick now. They torque the stick. Like I shoot the old way, trying to flick your wrist more so. But
There's
now
more-
it's
there's
more
a-
about the stick, really.
There's a lot of
learning how to
sweeping
use
going
it.
on
Yeah.
now. Sweeping
Yeah.
instead of the snap.
Yeah.
You know.
And you notice that the wrist shots come back a lot. Like,
Yeah.
Like Austin Matthews and his wrist shot. It really is a wrist shot.
That's probably his in his repertoire. He's got all facets of the
Yeah.
game, obviously. But his biggest weapon is the quick release. That wrist shot, the snapshot. He's probably right now. He's the guy, right? The Ovechkin, for so many years, has been the guy with the incredible consistency, scoring 50 goals, and he's chasing Gretzky's. I think he's 50 something out away from Wayne now. But I think if Austin Matthews can continues on the same average that he's at, he's only 20. I think he might be 26. He's already, like, I think he's at 400, 500 goals. He could be on pace if he stays healthy. Yeah. That's always the key. If he stays healthy, if it's Wayne's record or if it's Ovechkin's record, to break whatever one it is. I think Matthews has a distinct chance to do it. He has a team around him to do it. Like, if you're talking about major talent. He's got William Nylander, Tavares, Mitch Marner. He's got Morgan Riley on the back end. They've got the new buck, Matthew Nyes, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's a good player. Toronto is loaded.
McMahon.
McMahon's really coming.
Make no mistake, Toronto is loaded. If they don't win within this year or the next year, I think the team will be scrapped.
Yeah, could be.
Right?
He also has maybe the greasiest mustache in professional sports, the Austin Matthews. That thing is just...
It's getting a life of its own now.
It's just dirty.
We're talking about the
As his
mullet.
mustache grows, he's here.
He's going to... Yeah, so he's...
He'll probably flip it back.
He might... I think if they don't win... And he's under contract, I think. He signed a multi-year deal, so I think he's still under contract. But I think there's nothing saying that they won't trade him. And I predict that if Toronto doesn't win the Stanley Cup this year or next year, Austin Matthews at some point if they don't win, even if he does win, maybe he'll go back home to his hometown in Scottsdale and play for the Echo.
But you guys know better than I do. Like, regionally, how do we stack up with the Saudi teams, the UAE teams, the Abu Dhabi? Like, I know Dubai, doesn't Dubai have like 4 leagues or something like that? Like,
well, right now, like, we have not participated in a Dubai tournament, which traditionally we have. We've always sent teams. We last participated in 2022. It was a 5-year absence. Last time before that was 2007. COVID was in there.
And
the blockade. The embargo was there. The embargo was the main reason why we hadn't been there since 2017. Yeah, so we came back in April of that year. We competed at that tournament. And then the embargo started, then COVID started, so it was 2022 before we went back. But to get back to your question about how do we stack up, we used to be, a solid B team. Like, they have divisions in their tournaments. And I'm particularly referencing Dubai in the UAE and Abu Dhabi. Those are 2 tournaments that we frequented quite a bit. Annually, we'd go there for years, right?
And they'd often come here.
Yeah, and they came here for Desert Cup tournaments. So really, the hockey nations or cities per se in the Gulf region, you have Dubai, you have Abu Dhabi. There's a little bit of a populace in Al Ain, which is another Arab emirate. Dukhan in Saudi had some hockey there.
Oman.
And Oman,
The dogs. Wadi
Jordan
dogs.
or Daman. Oh yeah, right. And Oman Wadi Dogs, yes. Yeah. And there's some hockey in Bahrain, the Bahrain Sharks. Yeah. But usually, the hockey in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they actually had a senior league there.
right.
Where there was actually contact.
Well, Jesse said there's like a ton of Russians that are playing.
Yeah. So what happened then in the mid 2010s, what was happening is we'd go to these tournaments and we couldn't compete anymore in A division. So we'd go down to B. So what was happening in A, they were bringing in semi-pro players from Czech and Russia.
Really?
And
Like,
they would
not just one.
there was teams like from
with 3
Russia
lines.
that would have 18 guys on the bench.
Yeah.
And we went.
and all just guns.
We played in 2000. I think it was around 2010 or 9 or 10. We went with a really good Qatar Canucks team, and we played in A division. And in a true rec tournament, we were good enough to beat any team in that tournament. It was a true rec tournament. But we faced a Czech team that blew us out 9-0, and they had a player by the name of Michael Civic, who was on the Olympic gold medal team with Peter Nedved.
What?
And our goaltender was Laurie Tulk, who was really good, senior hockey goaltender in Newfoundland, very good. We had a great team within the confines of rec hockey tournament, but not good enough for that tournament, right? So that's where we're at now. I think we've returned now to being competitive with any of the top legitimate teams. If they don't bring in imports.
If they don't bring in the imports.
Right? We have about a nucleus of 15 guys that if we had all 15 guys and we're a pick of the 2 goalies, we could go to Dubai and legitimately compete for at least
Sounds like
B.
a call to arms.
Yeah. So we're right there now. It's just a matter of getting it organized and then partaking in some of these tournaments that we used to partake into annually, right?
So if you could like snap your fingers before we get rained on here, if you were to snap your fingers and be able to go back to any tournament of the tournaments they've ever went to, what, like I know guys went to Czech, they went to Thailand, like where would you want to go back to?
Prague was my favorite.
Right.
Were you on that trip, Greg? We went to Prague.
We weren't in Prague though. We were in we were in a sleepy town
That's
called
right.
Takov, which
Takov,
was
that's right.
Which was
But that was fun.
It was fun. It was in 2011 in April, and it was halfway between Stuttgart, Germany, and Prague, Czech Republic. And most of us flew into Stuttgart and made the commute to Takov, and we found it so sleepy. It was like a vampire town.
Yeah.
Nothing was going on. It was like
Right.
sleepy. Nothing. You go out in the daytime, everyone's inside, and it was only in the nighttime you go to a bar or to a club, and it was like they came out of the walls like vampires. It was
Really?
like, oh, there is people here.
Right.
Well, let's put in our fangs and see if we can compete. So we'd have a good time in town. But it was fairly sleepy. Great hockey though.
Yeah, it was good tournament.
We had like our normal crew that would go on these tournaments back then. Glenn Robinson was actually partaking as a goalie back then, and we were a little bit bored when it came to the weekend. We were a little bit bored, and I can remember you talk about Dion. Dion was he said to me, Gregor, we need to go into Prague. Can we rearrange our schedule for tomorrow? So sure enough, we're getting rained on here by a sprinkler. I think we're okay.
We're short.
Anyway, they did. They accommodated us. They changed our schedule so that we didn't have to play until late the following day. So we took a rental bus and we went into Prague for the night and stayed at hostels.
Yeah.
In Prague.
Tim Rooney and I stayed for a few more days.
And you guys went in separately, yeah. So Prague, I haven't been back, but this is a shout out to QIIHL. Juha was a long member of our hockey community here in Doha. He's since moved back to Finland and now he's residing in Italy. And Juha is responsible usually the last couple of years for getting a few guys from Qatar, and then Qatar Canucks will go to the barrel tournaments in Prague, usually in the fall. So I haven't partaken in that in a while, but the boys still do it. So I would like to be, do one of those. But as far as going back somewhere that I've been to, I would like to go back to Singapore sometime. Yeah. Singapore was cool.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Was that the one with the in the mall with all the girls hanging over the rails? Where was that? Or was that in Bangkok?
That might be a discussion for another podcast.
All the like 24-year-old guys in League Lakes like, what now? What are you talking about? Like Thailand girls hanging over the walls? What are you saying?
Yeah.
Well, I meant when
I know.
When Dan was
I vaguely remember something.
when
like
Dan
that.
was in the league last year, and he was just talking about he'd like played in that tournament, or he played in that league in Phuket, Thailand. He was like living in, and I was like, what? Because we'd been to Phuket like a couple of times. I was like, so you could actually play hockey and live in Phuket and have all that other things.
I've never done the Bangkok. They have a couple of tournaments in the fall.
No, this is in Singapore.
Yeah, but the one that in Bangkok they have a Land of Smiles tournament. I think and then they have one in the spring as well. And Prague has a similar thing with the barrel tournaments. They host one in the fall, I think October or November, and then they host one in March or April. So I know Juha and Roger Headley. Shout out to Roger. Roger usually is one that's responsible for getting a contingent from Doha to go as well. Between Juha and Roger, there's always some representation of the Canucks in those tournaments.
I want to go to the alumni tournament in Vegas that Ronnie McClellan, I think.
It's funny how ironic you mentioned it. I'm going this April.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm partaking in April.
Are we off during that week?
I don't know if the college is off, but I'm going.
That'd be fun.
I'm just throwing out there for over Eid break. I'm throwing a surf camp at my surf place in Welligama. If anybody wants to come to learn how to surf and come to a surf camp for a week, if you're a teacher and you got your time off, come find me.
That was a note. That was a message from our sponsor.
That's our sponsors. Yeah, Welligama Waves Surf Camp. Yeah.
What else do we want to talk about? Anything in particular?
What do you see going forward? Anything else you want to add, Vince?
No, I think next year may be my last year because I'll be going back home. I guess retiring. I'm so slow now that it's pretty tough to play with the newer guys.
Do you remember when you were a kid? What age were you when you remember like putting on the gear and playing some Like minor hockey?
I was
it
a little older. Like I'd never started till I was in grade 9. I don't think, because there was no hockey.
Okay,
John Dean had started it.
Yeah, I was similar for me. I think I was 13 when I started in Mount Pearl.
I mean, I played on a pond or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I played lots of hockey after that. I played junior hockey. I played in this intercity senior hockey league.
Right.
Which was, back then it was a hatchet league.
So back then in Newfoundland, how did you get your equipment? Were you ordering it through like the Eaton's catalog?
You could buy it at Sears.
What was the skate of choice? What was the
Howie Meeker Sports Shop in downtown St. John's
yeah.
was the main place.
Howie Meeker was a big
back
player
then.
in
Before Sports Craft and Sports Shop, it was Howie Meeker Sports Shop. Yeah, he had his place there.
What was the skate that you remember, or what was the piece of equipment that you remember?
CCM Tax was the.
Oh, I remember getting the tax with the. Once they went to the, graduated to the Tuck Blades in around 1979. First time I saw them was cool. With the Lake Placid Olympics, and the Americans had the new Tucks on the. As their blades on the skates. It's like, what's going on? What, they have tape? They have hockey tape on their blade? What's going on? And then that was the first time I can remember a distinct graduation from a relic type piece of gear, which was the old steel blades that Bobby Orr wore.
Boreas Salming wore the black. They were like the runners, the older runners, but they were black.
Right.
Similar plastic.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. They were coated.
Yeah.
They were traditional steel blade, but they were coated with a black carbon. Yeah. And then the Tucks, I remember the Tucks were coming out.
The Sherwood hockey stick, PMP 5030s.
Yeah.
Well, the PMP 5030 was the stick of choice for most of us back then. Before the aluminums.
Yeah.
Now we have composites. After the wooden sticks, the first thing to come on the market that I recall, I think I was in midget hockey, and everyone was the rave was aluminum.
Put the blade in the stick. Or?
Yeah. The rave back then, I'm going to say late 80s, was the aluminum sticks, and I think Canadian. Remember Canadian?
Yeah.
And Easton were the first ones to come out with those sticks. Yeah. And what it was, it was aluminum. It wasn't composite. It was aluminum, a shaft, painted with whatever graphics, and you heat up the end of the stick, and
some glue on it.
And it would have a sticky epoxy on the inside. You would heat the shaft, either a stovetop or a blowtorch. And the aluminum would expand. You slip in the wooden blade. At the time, we didn't have anything other than the wooden blades back then. The fiberglass treated wooden blades. You'd stick that in, and you'd run it over cold water to counter effect the heat, and it'd close up, and on your way. And then usually the sticks wouldn't break, especially in minor hockey. Nobody was really breaking aluminum sticks, so everyone was buying them because of the longevity and durability of a stick. You'd have to, you wouldn't have to get a new wooden stick every month because it'd splinter. You just replace the blade on those. So that was the big innovation that I remember changing the game.
It's funny how trends happen in sports and things come. Do you remember for about 3 years in the NFL where barefoot kickers was a thing? Do you remember where there's a couple? They had guys who used to kick with the barefoot, and it was
no sock and just
and they would be out there, it'd be minus 30 and stuff. There's a certain time where just a thing happens and it becomes the hot thing for a while, right?
Yeah, it's like the Cooperall.
Yeah,
Cooperall was the next thing that came on. We're on the same. Actually, before the aluminum, we had the long Cooperall shells in. When I played at high school hockey at O'Donnell.
Where I'm from, the Bramley Blues.
We had it in Mount Pearl.
I hated them.
The Bramley Blues used to wear those with the big white stripe and the blue.
Bell bottoms were gone. I was like, hey, what is this? Anyway, that was
never lasted very long.
No, the NHL teams now come out and warm up just to kind of go, throw back a little bit.
They're actually not Cooperalls what they wear now. No. Warm-ups are just pants that look like them.
So when you go back home, when you retire, Vince, are you going to keep playing, or is this going to be...
Well, the problem is when you go back is the time. It's hard to get a game at a decent time of night.
And especially with all the hockey and stuff, with your age demographic, and we're playing, you're talking 1 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday night, right?
And that's the beauty of one of the excellent things about being here is you play in prime time, and it's awesome, really, and it's unbelievable. When people come here, they don't realize how good the hockey is and how accessible it is. And you're playing in a mall, I know, but the rink is fine. There's a great rink, and the El Sad rink, if you guys can get sorted out there, it'll be even better.
Yeah. If we get that going, then there's tournaments to be had for sure, right? You could start building. The way to promote that would be league throws it, and that gives some money in the coffers to get going. We could throw one good tournament, and that would put bags of money in the league.
But I'm not the oldest guy in the league. I don't. I think Paul.
Talking about
Paul probably Warner is he?
the demographic, yeah. Right now, I'm going to say it might. Yeah, it's probably Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, I think. Paul, are you 67? I think you're 67.
Yeah.
Paul, I think, and Smicer was right there.
Yeah.
Well, Smice is retired now, I think, has he?
He might come back. His shoulder's not the best. He has lots of physical problems.
He must be missing it.
So-
Something fierce,
He
eh,
does.
Smice?
But I know,
This
you
is
know
it.
what though? I think the median age now of our league is a lot lower than it had been in the previous years, because we got a lot of these young bucks that have come in that are teachers that are like 25. Like we had Colton on 2 weeks ago, and Colton told us he was 25, and Jimmy and I were like, dude's only 25. He's like, be our son, right?
Yeah.
So there's the young bucks like the two Finns, Calais and Jesse, I think are late 20s, early 30s. A lot of guys in the league are late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
But then you have these young bucks that bring counter-effected, that bring it down in favor of the younger. And then there's a few old bucks like us, and
Yeah. And my
we bring it up. We bring
my
it up a
speed
little.
is being exposed every
We bring it
time
up a
now,
little bit.
but,
So
you know, your slowness is really.
we asked this about from our previous guests and stuff. Going forward, how do you foresee the league going as far as the teams are? Who do you think is there a particular team that you see staying there as doing as well as they are now? We have the Kings, who are undefeated. Do you see a jockeying there going on forward, or do you think is one team going to be dominant the whole time, or is there a dark horse there that can come on and maybe challenge?
Well, I think if we could be a dark horse, I think if we get all our guys there, the top end guys, Charles, and the guys, I think we could be right there. I really do.
Yeah.
And often in our league, as strong as the leader is during the season, often they don't win it, because it comes down to sometimes one game,
Yeah.
And so I think we could be the dark horse. I really do. I think we got a good crew, and sometimes it depends on who shows in the playoffs. Sometimes the complexion of the team kind of can change.
Right. Anybody in particular that has impressed you with their play so far this year? I've asked that amongst.
I think Thaddeus.
Thaddeus again.
Thaddeus was always good. Thaddeus was always good.
Yes. We have an edit.
Thaddeus
was always good, but he's really he's really made a jump forward, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it's just confidence or something.
I'll tell you who's impressed me. Colton's good. Colton's like I'm trying to figure out whether there's a Qeason bounce or there's a Qeason dip. Like if you're on this, do you suddenly play better or do you play worse? We need a bit more data, and then we'll have to like.
Is there a direct correlation to being on the show and your level of hockey acumen rises?
Probably.
Maybe we can do a study on that. And
I can tell you as me, there's a gigantic target.
As the
Because
host?
Greg at least can defend himself, but if I'm sitting there going, "Hey, the surfers, hey, how you doing, boys?" They're just going, "Thank you very much, sir."
Yeah.
That's a problem. There's a reason why you retire before you do this.
Anybody that you're surprised that you didn't know about that is not necessarily a dominant player, but you were thinking, oh, he or she is not too bad.
There's a couple of guys probably on every team, I think, that are that.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I didn't know really Colton that well, but he's one of those guys that when I saw him playing in the shinnies, he looked okay, but he's a lot better than okay.
Right. I think he's underrated. But
Yeah.
I think Jarkko was able to get him fairly late in the draft. I think we always talk about the Essays and the Calais who came in the league in the fall that kind of went under the radar a little bit because the captains didn't know they're really good players. Colton is a good player, but I think he went lower than he should have in the draft, right? So maybe that'll change in the fall when we have another one. Yeah.
Very good.
So on that note, we'll clue it up for this week, and until next week, keep your head up and stick on the ice. Salute.
It's the best game you can name. Good job, boys. That was good.
Vince mentioned it to me when we were chatting there. Do we need to shorten it?
We can cut it
I
down.
think it's too long.
It's,
Like
it's,
for our,
Because
not
it's-
for us, it's great.
I don't
for
find
us.
it boring.